Everybody wants to be great. Everybody wants to live their dream life. The cars, the freedom, the house, the success story. But here's the truth, big dreams don't come cheap. If your dream is massive, then your sacrifice has to be massive too. Too many people want to reach the top, but they're not willing to give up sleep, comfort, excuses, or bad habits. You can't expect a championship lifestyle while paying discount prices. Dreams are expensive, and if you're serious about yours, you've got to be willing to sacrifice at a level most people will never understand. When we talk about dreams, most people think of them as this purely inspirational thing, visions of a better future, something to aspire toward, and they are that. But what's often missed, and what's far more important, is that dreams carry a cost. The higher you set your aim, the greater the sacrifices you'll be required to make. It's not arbitrary, it's not unfair, it's simply how the structure of reality works. The universe has a kind of balance built into it. You don't get something for nothing. If you want to live an average life, work a stable job, stay comfortable, avoid risks, you don't need to pay very much. The sacrifice required for mediocrity is minimal. You trade ambition for safety, and in return you get predictability. But if your dream is extraordinary, if you want to build something that changes your life, your family's future, maybe even the world, you need to understand that the price of admission is steep. You cannot demand greatness without being willing to relinquish comfort. Think about it psychologically. Every action you take is a form of trade. If you choose to spend 3 hours watching television, you are trading those 3 hours of life for comfort and entertainment. But those same 3 hours could have been invested in building a skill, refining your craft, or developing discipline. And what people often forget is that time is a non-renewable resource. You can always make more money, but you can't manufacture more time. The real economy of dreams is measured in hours, energy, and discipline. Philosophically, it's worth noting that sacrifice is one of the oldest ideas in human culture. Ancient traditions all across the world recognized that in order to attain something of value in the future, you had to give up something valuable in the present. That's not just religious symbolism, it's a psychological reality. The question isn't whether you'll sacrifice, you will. The question is whether you'll sacrifice consciously with your future in mind or unconsciously by default through distraction and avoidance. And here's the paradox that so many people get wrong. Comfort feels safe, but it's actually the most dangerous path you can take if you want a meaningful life. Comfort lulls you into complacency, it robs you of urgency, and it makes you weak. If you dream of achieving something remarkable, you have to decide what you're willing to suffer for. Because suffering is inevitable. The difference is whether that suffering is meaningless, wasted on procrastination and regret, or purposeful, directed toward building the life you actually want. So when I say the bigger the dream, the higher the price, I'm not trying to discourage you, I'm pointing out the rules of the game. You can't cheat them. But here's the good news once you truly accept this. Once you align your actions with the reality that sacrifice is required, you stop resenting the grind. You see every hour of hard work, every moment of discomfort as a down payment on your future. If sacrifice is the price of a big dream, then discipline is the mechanism that allows you to pay it. And this is something that many people misunderstand. They think discipline is about punishment or about forcing yourself into some rigid routine that feels restrictive. But discipline is not punishment, it's structure. It's the bridge that connects your vision for the future with the daily actions required to bring that vision into being. Without discipline, sacrifice becomes wasted suffering. With it, every sacrifice is transformed into meaningful progress. Think about it this way, a dream is abstract. It's a picture in your head of a better future, but on its own, it's intangible. You can't touch it, you can't live in it, you can't pass it down to your children. It exists only in the realm of imagination. What discipline does is bring that dream into the physical world, step by step through repeated action. You don't achieve a dream in one giant leap, you achieve it in thousands of small, often boring, often uncomfortable, consistent steps. Discipline ensures that those steps are taken, whether you feel like it or not. Psychologically, this is crucial. Human beings are emotional creatures. We're driven by moods, by fleeting desires, by comfort, seeking instincts. If you rely only on motivation, you'll fail because motivation is unstable. It rises and falls depending on circumstances. Discipline, by contrast, is stable. It says, regardless of how I feel today, this is what I will do. And that kind of stability is what allows a person to push through years of work, setbacks, and doubt. Philosophically, you could say discipline is the embodiment of order. It's the principle that transforms chaos into something meaningful. Without discipline, life becomes dominated by impulsivity, and impulsivity leads to disorder, financial problems, broken relationships, wasted potential. But when you impose discipline on yourself, you create order out of chaos, and order is what allows growth. It's not that discipline limits you. It actually frees you because it channels your energy into something constructive rather than scattering it across distractions. Now, discipline isn't glamorous. Nobody applauds you for waking up at 5 a.m. when it would be easier to stay in bed. Nobody cheers when you say no to the party so you can study, or when you choose to save instead of spend. But those small, invisible choices accumulate. Over time, they build momentum, and momentum builds transformation. What looks like sacrifice in the moment becomes freedom in the future. And here's the truth, if you lack discipline, your dreams remain fantasies. They become something you talk about but never live. But if you cultivate discipline, you turn imagination into reality. It's not about perfection. It's about persistence. It's about showing up Again, even when no one notices, even when no one cares, even when you're tempted to quit. Discipline is the great equalizer. Talent without discipline decays. Ambition without discipline collapses. But discipline, applied consistently, can take an ordinary person and produce extraordinary results. So the question you have to wrestle with is this: will you be ruled by your feelings in the moment or by the vision you've set for your future? Because one path leads to regret and the other to fulfillment. If sacrifice is the price and discipline is the bridge, then time is the currency you pay with. And it's the one currency you can never get back. This is perhaps the most sobering reality we have to confront. Money can be lost and remade, opportunities can close and reopen, but every hour that passes is gone forever. And the tragedy is that most people treat time as if it were cheap, as if they had an endless supply. They waste it casually on distraction, on trivialities, on things that do nothing to move them closer to their dream. Psychologically, this is one of the most dangerous delusions we carry, the belief that we have plenty of time. We put off the important work until tomorrow, until next week, until the conditions feel perfect. But those tomorrows add up. You can spend years waiting for the right moment, and in the process, you silently abandon your dream. What people don't understand is that the perfect moment never arrives. Life is too unpredictable. There will always be obstacles, always be reasons to delay. The only real time you ever have is now, and if you don't use it intentionally, you lose it by default. There's also a moral dimension to this. Time is not just yours, it belongs to the people who depend on you, to your family, to your community, even to the future version of yourself. When you waste time, you're not only cheating yourself, you're cheating everyone connected to your potential. If you could become someone capable of creating value, of leading, of building, and instead you squander that capacity and distraction, you've not just failed privately, you've failed publicly, because the world needed what you could have contributed. Philosophically, you could frame this in terms of mortality. Every second that ticks by is a reminder that you are finite, and that should not depress you. It should wake you up, because the very fact that life is limited is what gives it urgency. If you had eternity, there would be no reason to act, no reason to sacrifice, no reason to discipline yourself. But because your time is short, your choices matter immensely. And when you understand that, you begin to treat your hours with reverence. You begin to ask, is what I'm doing right now worthy of the life I'm exchanging for it? The reality is simple but profound. If your dream is big, it's going to demand a massive investment of time. And you have to decide whether you're willing to spend your life on the things that matter or whether you'll trade it away on comforts that leave you empty. Because in the end, time is always moving forward. It doesn't wait for you. It doesn't pause until you're ready. You either use it with intention or you lose it forever. If time is the currency, then how you spend it becomes the defining factor of your future. And here's a principle worth holding on tight. What you choose to sacrifice today will determine what you're able to celebrate tomorrow. It's a simple cause, an effect relationship, but one we resist because the sacrifices demanded of us are almost always uncomfortable. They require us to give up immediate gratification in exchange for something distant and uncertain. And that's hard because psychologically, the human mind is biased toward the present. We are wired to prefer comfort now over reward later, even when the later reward is exponentially greater. This is why so many people fail to achieve their dreams. They want the result without enduring the process. They want the reward without the discipline. They want to celebrate without sacrificing. But reality doesn't work that way. Every meaningful achievement, every degree earned, every business built, every transformation of character comes at the cost of temporary discomfort. You endure the pain of study now so you can celebrate mastery later. You endure the discipline of saving now so you can enjoy freedom later. You endure the grind of building your dream when nobody sees it so that one day the world cannot ignore it. Philosophically, this is the principle of delayed gratification, and it is at the heart of maturity. Children live entirely in the present. They want what they want immediately with no thought for the consequences. But adults, real adults, accept that the future is shaped by the choices of the present. To act with that awareness is to live responsibly. And responsibility is what makes life meaningful. When you recognize that your sacrifices today are building a future you'll inhabit tomorrow, you stop seeing them as losses. You start seeing them as investments. There's also a deeper truth here about character. When you learn to delay gratification, you don't just achieve external success, you change who you are internally. You develop patience, resilience, and strength. And these qualities are far more valuable than any material reward because they equip you to face the inevitable challenges of life with courage. In fact, the ability to sacrifice willingly, to embrace short-term pain for long-term gain, may be one of the most reliable predictors of success in every domain of life. But the temptation to avoid sacrifice is powerful. That's why so many settle for mediocrity. It feels easier to enjoy the moment, to indulge, to avoid discomfort. But that short-term ease compounds into long-term suffering, regret, missed opportunities, unrealized potential. Meanwhile, those who choose sacrifice experience the opposite. They carry temporary burdens now, but those burdens transform into joy, pride, and fulfillment later. So, the equation is simple. Suffer a little now or suffer much more later. The difference is whether that suffering leads to growth or to regret. There's another dimension to sacrifice that isn't often discussed, but it may be one of the most difficult. Sometimes the greatest sacrifice you have to make isn't giving up comfort or entertainment. It's letting go of certain people, Human beings are social creatures. We're influenced profoundly by the groups we belong to, the conversations we engage in, the standards that define the people closest to us. And whether you recognize it or not, your environment is shaping you every single day. Psychologically, this is unavoidable. We mirror the behaviors, values, and ambitions of those around us. If you surround yourself with people who are lazy, undisciplined, and comfortable with mediocrity, you will, over time, adopt their habits. You'll adjust your expectations downward to fit the group. It won't even feel like a conscious decision. It will feel natural because the human psyche is wired to seek belonging. But belonging at the wrong level can quietly destroy your potential. Conversely, when you put yourself in the company of those who aim higher, who are disciplined, who demand more from themselves, you're compelled to rise to their standard. You're forced to grow because your environment no longer tolerates mediocrity. This is why one of the hardest but most important steps you can take in pursuit of a big dream is to assess your relationships honestly and ask, do these people pull me up or do they drag me down? Philosophically, you could frame this as a matter of responsibility. Who you keep close is not just a personal preference, it's a moral choice. Because it doesn't only affect you, it affects your capacity to fulfill your potential to contribute meaningfully to the world. If you tether yourself to people who encourage weakness, distraction, and avoidance, you not only limit yourself, you limit the good you might have done for others. But if you commit to surrounding yourself with people of character and ambition, you create a kind of upward spiral where everyone pushes each other to become stronger. This doesn't mean abandoning everyone who struggles. It means being intentional. There's a difference between helping someone rise and allowing yourself to be pulled into their collapse. And that requires courage, because letting go of certain friendships, or even distancing yourself from family members who refuse to grow, can feel brutal. But again, the principle remains: big dreams require big sacrifices. And sometimes the sacrifice is relational. The truth is, you become like the people you spend most of your time with. That's not a possibility, it's a certainty. So ask yourself, are the people around me aligned with where I want to go, or they anchor me to where I've always been? At some point, you have to recognize that big dreams cannot coexist with divided attention. Focus is not just a helpful trait. It is the essential condition for achievement. We live in a world filled with noise, with infinite distractions competing for our attention. Social media, entertainment, endless opinions, every one of them is designed to fragment your mind. And the danger is that when your attention is scattered, so is your life. You cannot build something meaningful if your energy is constantly leaking into trivialities. Psychologically, attention is the most valuable resource you have. What you focus on, you become. Your brain quite literally rewires itself according to the things you repeatedly give attention to. If your focus is scattered on distractions, you strengthen the circuitry of distraction. But if your focus is directed deliberately towards your goals, you strengthen the circuitry of purpose. In this sense, focus is not just a choice. It is a practice that shapes who you are becoming. Philosophically, you could see focus as the narrowing of possibility into actuality. There are infinite things you could do with your time, but when you choose one, when you commit fully, you collapse the potential into reality. And this is where many people falter. They fear choosing because choosing one path requires abandoning others. But refusing to choose is itself a choice, and it leaves you stuck in paralysis with nothing built, nothing realized. Relentless focus is the antidote to that paralysis. It is the decision to say, this is where I'm going and everything else will have to wait. Now that kind of focus doesn't come without sacrifice. It means turning off the noise when everyone else is scrolling. It means working when everyone else is relaxing. It means protecting your vision from anything internal or external that tries to dilute it. And here's the paradox: while it feels restrictive in the moment, it's actually what creates freedom. When your energy is channeled in one direction, you move forward with power. When it's scattered, you go nowhere. This is why the most successful people are often not the most talented, but the most focused. They refuse to let distractions dictate their attention. They know that depth, not breadth, is what produces mastery. They commit fully to their craft, to their mission, and they guard their commitment with everything they have. So you have to ask yourself, what are you willing to ignore? Because the ability to focus is really the ability to say no to lesser goals, to meaningless distractions, to anything that doesn't serve the larger vision. Without that, even the greatest dream will dissolve into nothing more than a pleasant thought. In the end, success doesn't belong to the scattered. It belongs to those who fix their eyes on a vision and refuse to look away. So in the end, the truth is inescapable: big dreams demand big sacrifices. They ask for your discipline, your time, your willingness to endure discomfort now so you can celebrate later. They require that you choose carefully who you allow into your life and that you guard your focus with everything you have. None of this is easy, but that's the point. If it were easy, everyone would be living their dream. What makes the dream valuable is precisely that it costs something. And the deeper truth is that by paying that cost, by sacrificing, disciplining yourself, investing your time wisely, choosing growth over comfort, and focusing relentlessly, you don't just achieve an external goal. You transform who you are. You become the kind of person capable of carrying the weight of your dream. That's the real reward. So the question that remains is simple: will you pay the price your dream demands? Or will you trade away for comfort? Because one path leads to regret and the other to greatness. The choice is yours,